Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Gamesir. This is a rather versatile game controller that supports the XIinput standard on Windows as well as Android devices via Bluetooth, and we'll be looking at how it performs on both in a minute. I believe it also supports the PS3 too, so you get a good amount of compatibility here with this game controller. Now I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, that Gamesir sent this to the channel for us to take a look at free of charge. A lot of you actually wrote in asking me to get one of these to take a look at, so that's what we did. All the opinions, though, you're about to hear are my own, and nobody is paying for this review, nor is anyone reviewing this video before it is posted. So let's get into the hardware here and see what it's all about. A pretty nice feeling controller, actually. It has a very comfortable feel to it. It's a little bit smaller than some of the other game controllers I've looked at recently, but for my hands, really comfortable and very responsive as well. I like the buttons here. They have some decent travel to them, and they're also backlit, so they look pretty cool at night. You can't change the color of the backlight, but you can turn it off if you choose. You have two analog sticks here that work very well, very sensitive and responsive. They're also clickable too, so you have all of the usual stuff that you would normally associate a game controller to have on modern platforms here. A good control pad as well that's not too hard to reach either. So both the stick and the control pad are very comfortable no matter which mode you're in there. You have a button here that will act as your Xbox button on Windows as well as your home button on Android. There is a turbo function also that can be programmed per button. So what you do is push the turbo button, hit the button you want to assign, and then you've got turbo assigned to that button, and there's a clear button here to get rid of all of that. Got your start and select buttons, which can be mapped to your particular game's need. You also have to use the select button occasionally to switch some of the modes around, and we'll show you that in a minute when we get into that. There's an internal battery on here. I think they said it's good for like 15 or 20 hours or thereabouts, so I don't think you'll have any issues with it as long as you plug it in between gameplay sessions. The USB port here will charge the internal battery. You can also plug it in directly into Android devices and have it work that way as well. You have some nice analog triggers here too, along with two shoulder buttons, and again, it really kind of mirrors the Xbox button layout, but really very comfortable, and it doesn't feel cheap to me. It's not heavy, but it has a really nice, pretty sturdy plastic on it, so I think it'll hold up pretty well over time as well. So I'm actually quite pleased with how this feels, given that I really haven't heard of the brand name before. Now, if you want to use this on Windows, you have to use the included little dongle here to work with your Windows device. And what this will do is make the controller appear as an Xbox controller when you're in Windows, which is really good to have because there's no driver needed if you have this thing plugged in, which is really good because we looked at the Steelseries Stratus XL recently, and that required a driver layer to be able to get that Bluetooth controller to work wirelessly with the Windows device. This just needs to have this plugged in. Now, I'm very concerned about losing this, though, because there's no place on the controller to store it, which I would like to see. Maybe a little door to stick it in or something when I'm not using it in Windows mode. I do want to note that they have an Apple mode on here as well for the iOS platform. You'll see the little Apple icon down there to indicate when it might be in that mode. However, it only supports the iCade format, which is an older format that a lot of older games support, but most of the newer games on the Apple platform now support the Apple standard, which this does not support. So this is iCade compatible on iOS devices, but not compatible with the latest game controller standard. So I'm not going to recommend this to iOS or iPhone users, essentially, because it doesn't work on that platform all that well. But let's start with Android and see how it works on there, and then we'll plug it into our Windows PC and see how it does with Windows. All right, so I've got it paired up with my Android tablet right now. I'll unpause my game, and you can see how everything seems to be working here. So pretty good response, no real noticeable latency, and I can have the choice here to choose between the directional pad or the thumbstick if I want to do that, so that's pretty nice to see there. I'm going to try the turbo mode here and see how this works. So I just hit turbo and A, and you can see now that Sonic is just kind of hopping around here because that turbo mode has been activated for button A, but not for button B. So you can see on button B here, he doesn't do the same thing he does when I push A down. And if I want to clear that turbo, I just hit clear, and that will return that button back to the function it had before. So you do have some ability to set up these turbo functions and determine how they work. So a pretty cool function there. And what I'm also going to show you here is the ability to use this as a mouse. So while you're in this Android Bluetooth mode, if you hit select and X, you'll see a little light here on the bottom light up with that little mouse icon, and now you've got a clickable mouse that you can move around on screen. So for example, I can just hit that. I can go back out here, maybe select Cody and hit the A button over that. So you get a mouse pointer that will be mapped to the controls there. If I want to turn that off, I hit select X again. You see that mouse pointer disappeared and I'm back into regular gamepad mode. So now what we're going to do is boot up my Windows computer and see how the direct input works with the dongle here. All right, the computer is booted up. We've got the dongle installed, and you also have to turn the controller on by holding down the power button and X, and that will switch it into its XInput mode, which will be indicated on the bottom of the controller here. So we'll go and resume my game, and you can get a feel for how well this responds to my button pushes and my controller movement. Feels pretty nice, actually. It really feels very close to what I would normally experience on my Xbox controller with this computer here. So I'm pretty pleased with the overall performance of it. It does have a rumble motor built inside too, so when your game calls for your controller to shake, it will do so with the same gusto that a lot of Xbox controllers will do. So I was pleased to see that as well. Really nice to see that there's no driver required either. As long as that dongle is plugged in, you're good to go. Now, a big test of its Xbox controller compatibility is to look at the Xbox One app that allows you to stream your Xbox One to your Windows PC. So I have my Xbox One upstairs connected. I'm streaming from it to my laptop right now with the Gamesir here, and it works fine. It seems to be working as well as any Xbox controller would, which is a good thing because that is what this streaming app requires. So if the controller wasn't Xbox compatible, this would not work at all, and it seems to be working well. All the buttons map properly, so I'm not having any problems whatsoever there. So really nice to see that, and again, really nice to see that it works without drivers just by installing that dongle. So that is the Gamesir, and at $39, I think it's a pretty good value for its versatility. It works great on Windows without drivers. You just have to make sure the dongle is installed. Also works great on Bluetooth with Android devices. I did find too that the dongle worked on Android as well, so if your Bluetooth performance isn't all that great, you can switch over to the dongle and get that working on Android again without any drivers needed on any of these platforms. And that's a nice thing because this one kind of lines up with the Steelseries Stratus XL we looked at a couple of weeks ago that cost about $20 more. That controller works via Bluetooth and requires drivers on Windows in order to get the XInput compatibility. This one doesn't. As long as that dongle's plugged in, you are good to go. I do recommend maybe getting a little USB extender cable for the dongle to get a little bit better reception depending on where your PC is located, but by and large, this does seem to be a very good controller at a very good price. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.